What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Read BetSided. It's college football betting show, bowl season edition, college football playoff semifinal edition. We got a loaded show here. So we brought the big guns for the postseason. We brought in Chris "The Bear" Fallica of ESPN's College Game Day for the end of the year. Pumped to have him on, pick his brain on how he bets bowl season, how he's betting these actual bowl games, and of course the college football playoff semifinals. Chris, thank you for joining the show. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Yeah, a lot going on these days with the start of bowl season. We got the World Cup semifinals on right now, so you might be catching me time and time again peering over to my left to see if we can get Croatia through. But no, it's a busy time of the year, and unfortunately, we had some sad news this morning with the passing of Mike Leach, who was. I think we can all say that. I mean, college football is a sport that is so much better, and the reason it's so unique and loved is because of all the characters in the sport. And Mike Leach was an original within the sport. I mean, and what he did innovating offenses was, of course, his impact on the field. But I think all of his spontaneous wit and pondering and thoughtful responses and inquisitive responses at press conferences were the things that made him who he was. And I can remember when we were at College Game Day at Washington State with College Game Day a few years back. One of the signs in the background was that image, the Costanza Seinfeld image with Mike Leach's head on the Costanza body. He actually wanted that sign, so we sought out the people in the stands who had that sign, and he actually wanted to put it up in his office. So it just kind of goes to show it's kind of the wit and the humor that he had. So it's a sad day for all of us who love the sport so much.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously tragic news. And, I was going to ask you for an anecdote about Coach Leach, but, the show will go on. But obviously college football lost one of its best coaches, its pioneers in the sport. I mean, his coaching tree is long and wide at this point. So, rest in peace, Mike Leach. And, we will go on with the show, but, we will miss you, Coach, and, everything you brought to the sport. So moving on, though, let's talk how we handicap bowl season, because it's kind of become like an art, right? Because the transfer portal is so wild. There's NIL, there's opt-ins, opt-outs. Everything's going crazy. I mean, just today, Western Kentucky's quarterback, Austin Reed, he hit the portal last week. He's now out of the portal. He might play in their bowl game against South Alabama coming up. So, I mean, listen, there's like no rules here. It's like the Wild West. So, Chris, I'll ask you, is there a special science you have for betting bowl season? Is it merely informational? Is it, because on a given week, you want to bet early in the week, you want to get ahead of some numbers. This is kind of, you could bet whenever you want. A player could opt out and go pro, and the bet's up in flames. So is there any tips and tricks to betting bowl season, you think, or it's kind of everything's on their own? You're on your own here.
It's hard. I mean, at least in the NFL preseason, you kind of have an idea of coaches saying, okay, starting quarterback's going to play 2 drives, and you kind of figure it out as to whose backups are going to play more and what the purpose of the game is. Here, it's all information seeking. If you're going to get down pre-kick, and you've seen some ridiculous moves already with the Oregon State number going from 6.5 to 10. The SMU number is flying. The Tennessee number with Clemson made a big move. So it's hard to play. You can't chase the move. You don't want to get on it after the move is played, but at the same time, there's a reason why the move took place. So you really can't be sure about taking the other side and getting the inflated number. I think a lot of my bowl plays, for the most part, are going to be in game. I think if you watch a couple of drives, you get a much better idea of who's actually into it and who wants to play, than maybe taking a chance and doing a little guesswork and amateur psychology beforehand. So unless you get some good information on a lot of these earlier games, I don't think I'm going to touch a game probably for at least pre-kick for probably about another 8-9 days or so. But these games this weekend, the moves have already happened, and if you didn't have the information beforehand, it's hard to get down.
Yeah, it's not something where you hit a certain point, because if a star quarterback's going to opt out, going back the other way and playing against it, like, oh, we don't like, it's unquantified what the impact is going to be. And then it's college football. It's not like the NFL where you have to release injury reports. Like, you might not know someone's not playing until they're on the field. They're on the field and you don't see a player warming up, or you see a player in sweatpants. You just don't know. So it's
I get people who like, oh, I can't lay 10.5 points with Oregon State, but it's like, do you really want to take 10.5 with Florida with
exactly
basically a wildcat offense with no real quarterback on the roster? Like, that's the conundrum that you're in if you're not privy to what's going on beforehand.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that, what I did this year was I kind of made a little list, whether it was like a mental checklist or not, of like teams that could maybe be on the downswing, that like teams you may want to fade given how their season ended, who's on the roster, are they maybe going pro or not, like kind of hints and, being plugged into the market. So, hopefully we can hand out some interesting numbers that are still available, but these things are going to move, and it may be best. Like, don't be married to your number because you don't know who's going to get opt out, who's going to opt out. But so let's start with the games that definitely matter. This is not exhibition. This is real games here. College football semifinals. We're going to start with the Fiesta Bowl. Michigan, we'll call it 7.5. Total 58.5 against Big 12 representative TCU. Bear, how do you see this going? And Michigan, I mean, kind of a rocket ship. Blow out Ohio State, throttle Purdue, run up the score at the end, make sure they get that cover. And you think the Wolverines keep it rolling and they get to the national championship game? Or is this TCU kind of hype train that they lost their first game, but I think it's been incredibly impressive what you've seen from Sonny Dykes in his first year and Max Duggan. Do you think that they can hang around, catching a little bit more than a touchdown?
Yeah, I think they can hang around, but I think when the numbers first came out and there were some 9s and 9.5s even available, like I thought TCU might be the play there. But where it is now, 7.5, we'll call it 7.5. I think this has the feel to me like a game where what we've seen Michigan do for a good part of the year, just wear people down as the game goes on. And look, TCU's got them basically a month to rest up and heal up after that crushing Big 12 title game loss to Kansas State. So they'll be coming into this game as healthy as they've been in a long time, with Quentin Johnson healing up and Max Duggan getting a few weeks to catch his breath. But I ultimately just don't know if they're going to be able to run the football on Michigan on that front, and if they're going to be able to stand up to 4 quarters of the Michigan running game, even without Blake Corum in there and you're relying on Donovan Edwards for quarters. So I can see this being right around the number for most of the game, and maybe Michigan punches one in late to get across the number for a double-digit win. But I don't think this will be a complete blowout by any means.
Yeah, usually it's interesting because the college football playoff semifinals, they tend to be blowouts. They tend to not be that exciting. I think, we're going to look at 2 games that are going to be hyper competitive. That's just how I see it. I think it's funny. Both your bets on these games are going to be on the side. I'm on 2 different totals in this game. I like the first half under as my play. The trend with both of these teams is they get going in the second half. Like you mentioned, Michigan's physicality. They are one of the highest scoring teams, second in the nation in second half points per game. TCU, we've seen them get going in the second half, rally late. How many comebacks have they had in late scores? So I think first half under is the way to go here. Michigan, bottom 15 in terms of plays per minute. TCU, bottom 40. That 3-3-5 defense with Joe Gillespie, I've mentioned it all season long as we've rode TCU to the college football playoff. Limits explosive plays, and Michigan hit Ohio State over the top. Chunk plays against Purdue. I think this is going to be a more buttoned up approach early, and I think it's a slower start. So first half, I saw some 30 out there. It's not widely available, so this might come out closer to like 28. Anything above 28, though, I think going under in the first half, and then second half, maybe this game opens up a little bit. So there's our Fiesta Bowl preview. Michigan, Bears taking Michigan minus 7.5. I'm going to take the first half under 30 as there's our recap graphic there. Moving on to the Peach Bowl, local Georgia. I mean, they basically only play in Atlanta at this point. They're hosting Ohio State, who fell backwards into the college football playoff. Well, it doesn't matter whether they deserve to be there or not. They're there. Georgia, 6.5.
Of all the options, yes, they deserve to be there.
6.5, 7-point favorite, total 62.5. That total's been climbing, spread staying a little steady. Bear, how do you see the side playing out in this one? And does Ohio State have a chance? Do they bounce back after, kind of getting pantsed by their rival in the final game of the regular season?
Well, I would expect Ohio State to bounce back. I think Georgia could have some difficulty against the Ohio State receivers at the time if the Ohio State front can protect C.J. Stroud for just long enough. Now, we all know Jackson Smith-Njigba is not going to play. We think the running back should be a little bit healthier. But this is more one of those psychological plays that I was kind of talking, playing amateur psychologist, that Ohio State will be up for this game. They will view it as an opportunity after being bad-mouthed for a month that they shouldn't even be in the playoff. How they get in, and now you're a big dog and you're going into the backyard of the defending national champions. It's going to be a big home field edge for Georgia. I think all of those things kind of work in Ohio State's favor. In the matchup on the field, I do worry a little bit about the matchup up front and the fact that you have a Georgia offensive line, which kind of push people around. And we've seen, obviously, Ohio State lose that battle up front and seem to lack that toughness that might be required, as we've seen against Michigan the last couple of years, and maybe what we'll see here again against Georgia. So I'm going to go into the game. I'm going to take Ohio State plus the 6.5, and we're going to see how it goes. If it looks like it might be a chance where a deal with this thing is going to get out of hand early, maybe you buy a little bit back and you pay a little tax and you take Georgia on the money line or something to see maybe if you can catch a backdoor maybe or something. But I have a feeling Ohio State will show up, and don't know if they can get the outright win, but I do like them plus the points.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, and we'll come back to how this playoff might kind of go and play out, some permutations and stuff like that. But, there is a lot of similarities to Ohio State in 2014 when they kind of backpedaled into the playoff. They end up beating Alabama, beating Oregon. They win the national championship. So there are some similarities. I don't know if the teams are really the same, but I think it is an interesting parallel, especially with TCU was kind of in the mix to maybe get screwed out also. I agree. Numerically, I think Ohio State, this is an inflated number towards Georgia. I think Ohio State is less than a touchdown, but I don't know if I could actually bet it just from what I saw in that Michigan game. And that leads me to my play. Georgia team total over 34.5. I think for Ohio State to win and keep up, it's going to feature points. It's going to feature both teams getting into the 30s. We saw Michigan take the top off this Ohio State defense. Georgia's passing game is the underrated part of this team. You think Georgia would Stetson Bennett, you think ground and pound, we're going to run over you. The passing game is 5th in EPA per pass and 1st in success rate. The passing game is unbelievable this year. And I'm a little nervous. Or what were you going to say about the passing game?
Well, I was going to say you're right. And I think that's one of the things where you will probably find some major mismatches with Washington and Brock Bowers against some of those linebackers. And if they have A.D. Mitchell back healthy, that would be a plus. And the McConkey injury, I don't think is a big deal. I think he'll be fine. So you're right. I mean, there potentially could be a lot of opportunities there for Stetson Bennett to create some big plays. And if that happens, that's what really drives the Georgia offense, because they kind of use that to kind of open up the running game underneath. You worry about the going over the top, but now we can run the ball and really just play off the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and so they stayed under this team total in 4 games. 33-0 against Samford. I think that speaks for itself. They struggled against Missouri, only scored 26 points. Tennessee, they put up 27 points, but you watch that game. They turned it off in the fourth quarter. They didn't.
The weather had a little something to do with it too. Started raining pretty heavily at times during that game too.
Exactly. So I think if Georgia had foot on gas pedal, they would have cleared this number. And then Kentucky 16-6, kind of just a mess of a game on the road. Kentucky wasn't interested in moving the ball at all. Ohio State, obviously, they need to move the ball to keep up. So I think Ohio State could absolutely cover this. I just think I'm most confident is Georgia offense getting theirs. I don't see Ohio State shutting them down completely. So I like the Georgia team total over as my best bet in this. And then, Bear, just really quick on not necessarily national championship odds, but do you think that this is Georgia's – they're the clear favorite, they're very likely to win? Do you think Michigan could hold up? And do you see maybe – I guess just what's your prediction? Who ends up winning the national championship?
I think Georgia does wind up winning it again. I think they are the best team. I don't think it will be as easy as it was last year in the semifinal, and obviously the title game was a very close game as well until Jamison Williams' injury, and some might say that if Williams did not get hurt, that might win. But I still think the same problems that Georgia presented for Michigan last year would present themselves again this year. So I do think Georgia will wind up winning.
Love it. Let's bring up that recap graphic again, just some Peach Bowl best bets there. Chris has taken Ohio State plus 6.5. I'm going to take the Georgia team total over 34.5 as my best bet. And now let's talk about the fun ones. Let's talk about some bowl games here. We're going to be bouncing around
for yourself.
We're going to be bouncing around chronologically here. So we'll be a little out of sorts timeline wise, but we have some good bets in here. And we'll start with Blowout City. And, there's not a lot of big line spreads, but these are games that, the two of us think can maybe get a little lopsided quickly. So we'll start with the Camellia Bowl on December 27th, Georgia Southern laying 3.5 against Buffalo. Bear, how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I was surprised this number was this low. You see Buffalo really limping in to bowl season, we're very, very fortunate to beat Akron in their final game of the year to get bowl eligible. It started off well and it's really slid down the stretch. And on the other hand, you've got a Georgia Southern team which has won at Nebraska this year. They did beat James Madison. They play South Alabama well. They beat Appalachian State in the final game of the regular season to get bowl eligible. Van Trees and that offense should be okay here against Buffalo's defense. You're only laying 3.5. MAC teams typically do not play well in bowl games. If you fade MAC teams in the bowl games, you've done pretty well over a prolonged period of time. So Clay Helton was a hire that wasn't necessarily very popular or kind of raised some eyebrows to start the year, but I do think they do get a win here. And whatever fans will be at the game, being that the game's going to be in Montgomery, will be Georgia Southern fans. So I think this one could turn into a very lopsided Georgia Southern win.
Yeah, I was very plugged into Buffalo's last game, that snowed out Buffalo-Akron game on championship weekend. I had the Buffalo win total over. We had to grind that one home on Friday afternoon.
What a hell of a play by that kid, by the way, too. Reach, make the catch, and then have the wherewithal to know he had to reach behind and backwards to break the plane of the goal line with the ball. So
that got me through my Friday afternoon pretty well there, getting that one home. But yeah, my Blowout City, and this line is starting to move like within the last hour. I think I saw Washington State's offensive coordinator, Eric Morris. He's taking a job. I'm now drawing a blank on what job, but I think he's out. So this might be continuing to move. Fresno State laying 3 against Washington State in the LA Bowl. This is a Fresno State team I was high on coming into the year. Washington State I was high on also, but this is an opt-out play. Wazoo, bunch of guys on the defensive side hit the portal, namely Henley, their first team all Pac-12 linebacker, 3 wide receivers down. This is a defense that's going to struggle to keep up with Fresno State's offense. Jake Hayner's back. They've scored 28 or more in every game since he's returned, 30 or more in all of them, but the MAC Mountain West title game against Boise. I just think game in nearby LA, this Fresno State offense is humming. Best player on the field, Jake Hayner. I think he carves up this skeleton crew Wazoo defense. So I like Fresno. I think that this game gets lopsided quickly. That's the LA Bowl. That's on December 17th. So I want 3, of course, a key number, but I think this could get to double digits really quickly. I'm not sure Washington State's very interested in playing in this game.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. That's actually a good one. I think you saw the way the Apple Cup went with Penix having a monster game.
Oh, yeah.
I can probably see a very similar offensive output from Hayner and the Bulldogs, and I can't wait to see where Jake Hayner goes on draft day because he's the quarterback that I would have my eye on if I were a team in need of a quarterback.
Yeah, Jake Hayner, UCLA, that comeback last year, 2 a.m. on the East Coast. I was locked in watching that one.
The best game I saw all last year.
Can't teach that kind of moxie, Bear. You can't teach it with Jake Hayner. So there's our Blowout City picks. Bears taking Georgia Southern, laying the 3.5 against Buffalo, and I'm going to take Fresno State laying 3 against Wazoo. That line's looks like it's going to hit 3.5 pretty much everywhere soon. So I'd say hop on that Fresno one specifically pretty soon. Let's talk some underdogs though, because we didn't bring this up in the strategy part of betting bowls. At least for me, when I'm betting an underdog on the spread, as Jerry says, SCO dogs, I agree. Go Fresno. Betting underdogs in bowl season, I of course take the spread, but I also sprinkle half a unit on the money line because the variance is just out of control in these games. If you're taking an underdog, they are probably more likely to win than the odds indicate, as an underdog. So let's start here because I know we're on the same side here with the Independence Bowl, Louisiana taking on Houston on December 23rd.
Yeah, no, I have some numbers on that too. I have to update them, but you're right. Basically, the percentage of underdogs that cover that win outright is through the roof, and I'll update that number and get it out at some point the next couple of days. But yeah, I like Louisiana against Houston. I mean, you're looking at the game in Shreveport. You're looking at a Houston team that did not play well for a majority of the year. How were they motivated to play this game? Typically, Dana Holgerson's teams do not play well in bowls. 9 bowl games, 3-6 outright, 2-7 against the number. Lost 4 of their last 5 bowl games by at least 14 points. And you look at the bowl games in which Holgerson's teams were favored, 3 losses, 2 of them by double digits, and wins by 1 and 4 points. So there is a good track record of Holgerson and the bowl preparation for his teams against a Louisiana team that is playing essentially close to home. So if we're a regular season game, I'd want no part of Louisiana. But here, give me the Raging Cajuns plus the points and on the money line.
Yeah, full agreement here. Just a few more numbers to shoot at. I mean, this is Clayton Tune and Tank Dell. That's just pretty much it for Houston. We don't even this is potential opt out with those two who may have like interest in transferring or going pro or something. But Louisiana's defense, pretty solid unit, top 15 success rate, top 15 EPA per play. They limit explosive plays, and Houston's defense outside the top 100 in explosive play rate, 7th most penalty yards. This is a team that undisciplined. They went 1-7 this year against the spread as a favorite. So this is not a team you're interested in backing as a favorite laying points. So I think very live in Shreveport, like you said. I like the Raging Cajun as well. My underdog pick, going with another potentially local spot here, Texas Tech catching 3.5 against Ole Miss in the aptly named Texas Bowl. It's in Houston. It's about an 8-hour drive, but maybe they fly out. I think Texas Tech will have some sort of presence here. Joey McGuire kind of revitalizing the program this year. This Texas Tech team played super hard all year, finished the year on a 3-game winning streak. And you look at Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin flirting with the Auburn job potentially. They lose 4 of their last 5 in SEC play. Where is this team's head at going into bowl season? I'll take Texas Tech without a doubt here. And, just a few other things. Texas Tech defensive line, top 20 in tackles for loss. I think Jackson Dart was a little exposed at the end of the season. So I like the Red Raiders, high total of 70. Give me that hook. So I'll take 3.5 with the Red Raiders, my underdog play.
Yeah, no, and you mentioned they needed all 3 of those wins to get into a bowl. And Texas Tech was a team that was pretty good to me this year. I had them in the right spot. So if I had to give a Bear award for send out some thank you notes at the end of the year, Texas Tech would certainly be on that list.
I expect a letter in the mail, Coach McGuire, from the Bear here. So there's our underdog plays for bowl season. Chris is going to take Louisiana, and I'm in agreement here. He's taking Louisiana plus 6.5 against Houston, and I'm going to take Texas Tech catching 3.5 against Ole Miss. As we move, again, this is bowl season, so there's going to be some random ones out there. So we're looking at the famous Hawaii Bowl. I'm pretty sure it was canceled last year due to COVID/mutiny on the Hawaii football team. But
I was going to say add the mutiny of Todd Graham as well.
But we're back this year. San Diego State is laying 7 against Middle Tennessee. I know I bet this at open, which like a number that is very much does not exist anymore. So I won't even talk about it. It's completely irrelevant to the bet now that's at 7. But Chris, how do you see this game going? Middle Tennessee versus San Diego State.
I like Middle Tennessee plus the points, and there may be people out there who think that this is a vacation for Middle Tennessee and they're going to go out to Hawaii and just enjoy the bowl trip. But this is a team that they've played well at times. They beat Miami. They got blown out obviously by James Madison, but Miami, I think they had one other win that was semi-impressive as well. I can't remember what it was, but winning at Utah, all them 13 points is decent. I'm just not impressed with the San Diego State team. This is not the same San Diego State team that we were talking about in years past with Penny and some of the players and the great defenses that they had. If you go down the list of they scored 3 points in a loss to Air Force. New Mexico's terrible. San Jose State fell off the map. 14-10 win against UNLV. Nevada was terrible. Struggled with Hawaii. blown out by Boise State, barely beat Toledo, blown out by beat Idaho State. Like, you go down, and I just don't think offensively this is a really good team, and even defensively, they're not the team that they have been in the past. I can, at the very least, I could see maybe a Middle Tennessee team total over. Maybe Middle Tennessee's defense gets kind of abused, but Middle Tennessee +7 seems like a play for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, this opened like 2.5. This number is completely out of whack now. It's way too high, especially San Diego State. Converted quarterback Jalen Maiden for San Diego State. San Diego State could win for sure, but I mean, laying 7 in a bowl game, I don't have any interest in going against this one. So I'm totally with you here at 7. Mine maybe a little bit more gross, but I'm gonna take the over 49.5 in Baylor Air Force. This is the best offense that Air Force are going to see this entire season. And Baylor's offense is incredibly underrated. Top 15 success rate through the air, top 35 passing game overall in EPA per play. I just think Baylor's going to test this Air Force defense that is outside the top 100 in passing success rate. So if Baylor can move the ball, this is not the same Baylor defense that won the Big 12 championship. No. It's not Big Brother's Baylor defense from last year. They're bottom 3rd in the country in line yards. Obviously, that's Air Force's bread and butter. Line yards, triple option, push the ball in. Tough prep, triple option. At the end of the season, again, it's an exhibition game. Is Dave Aranda really going to install the nuts and bolts defense that's going to shut down this triple option? I don't think so. And I don't like blindly betting trends, but I did find one here. Troy Calhoun, since taking over at Air Force, gone over in 7 of 11 bowl games. To me, if you add some context to that just shows that teams aren't that great at prepping for the triple option in an exhibition style game. I think that Baylor's going to challenge the Air Force side as well. I think each team could definitely get into the high 20s here, and this could clear the total. It's still at 49.5. I play this up to 50.5. The Baylor Air Force over. I know people have been mentioning Air Force as a live underdog in this, but I don't know if you have any opinion here.
You know, if you go back over the last 10 years, Service Academies are 13-3 against the number in ball games. That kind of goes with your theory about very difficult to prep for those academies, even if you still have a couple of extra weeks. I mean, there are a lot of. I mean, I remember the bowl game of all time a few years ago when Army played Houston, and you saw that number, and I was like, "What? Houston cannot be favored. This is going to be the all-time quit effort." And
what, like 55-10, I think.
Whatever.
I watched that in my basement. I'm well aware of Army sticking Houston like that.
Yeah, so I would. Yeah, the only thing that worries me is Air Force's offense has struggled late in the year, but I agree. I think it's more of a play against the psyche of Baylor, losing 3 games to end the year, Kansas State blowout, and then 2 games they were in and easily could have won against TCU and Texas to finish the season.
Yeah, it's been a tough setback, but like that's just variance because Baylor had a few breaks go their way to win the Big 12 championship last year. It comes back to earth a little bit this year. I still, Dave Aranda, former Wisconsin guy, so we pull for Aranda. But yeah, completely agree with you there. I'd lean towards the Air Force side. So let's bring up that full recap graphic, and we'll get on with the show here as we bring it up. So there's first really quick, our underdog or trust me pick. Hawaii Bowl, Middle Tennessee +7 versus San Diego State from the Bear, and then I'm taking the over in Air Force Baylor. That's over 49.5 in the Armed Forces Bowl. And then for our full recap graphic, we'll get back to the college football playoff stuff that we had. Chris, all his bets are Michigan -7.5 against TCU, Ohio State +6.5 against Georgia, Georgia Southern -3.5 against Buffalo, Louisiana +6.5 against Houston, and then Middle Tennessee +7 versus San Diego State. And then for yours truly, Michigan TCU first half under 30, the Georgia team total over 34.5, Fresno State -3 against Washington State, Texas Tech +3.5 against Ole Miss, and lastly, Air Force Baylor over 49.5. And there's a bunch of bets for you. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. If you have anything you want to plug, any podcasts or columns coming up, please, this is your time.
Yeah, no, we'll have the final pod with Steve and I will be up next Wednesday. We decided it was a good day kind of in between the opening rush of these games and then before the bigger bowls get going. And then we'll have a column posted on ESPN.com on Thursday. Will be the start of it. And then as plays become known, we'll kind of everyone, myself, Steve, Joe, Doug, Anita, Aaron, everyone else will kind of just add to it as we go along with things we like and such. So bookmark that link, and it'll kind of get refreshed throughout the year. But yeah, the final pod will be next Wednesday, the 21st is that day. So yeah, looking forward to that. And we'll kind of rip through everything then too.
I look forward to tuning in. That's Chris Fallica. You can follow him on Twitter at Chris Fallica, the Bear. He's a legend. I appreciate you coming on. Best of luck with the bowl bets. Best of luck to Croatia. I'm not even sure what the score is right now. But
we're perfect. We're 0-0, 30 minutes in, and we got Croatia to advance, and we got under 3.5. So this is a good start to this match.
I love it. Well, best of luck with that one. Best of luck with the bets, and best of luck with everything in the future. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Reed.
There he is, Chris the Bear Fallica. So in the meantime, as we wrap up the show, I have a few more bets I'm going to rattle off. Make sure to ask some questions. Any bowl pool questions, I'm happy to answer any of them. But just 3 more bets that I want to mention, and some of the bigger games, 2 of the bigger games at least. One of them is just a random bowl game that I really like. But the Cotton Bowl, Tulane sitting around like a pick'em. I still like Tulane. Caleb Williams, people are going back and forth on if he's going to play or not. I still don't think he's going to play. Lincoln Riley mentioned a significant hamstring injury for Williams in the Pac-12 championship game. It's not just him, though. He's going to be back next year, the Heisman winner. But pro prospects across the board on this USC team, like Addison, I just think they're really going to play in this Cotton Bowl against Tulane. It's a raw number I make of 3.5. I'm still not there. This is a USC defense, bottom 5 in success rate. Tulane more than capable on the ground with Ty J. Spears, Michael Pratt through the air at quarterback. USC also miserable special teams. Willie Fritz, 12-8 against the spread in bowl games. That's a Tulane head coach. He's staying after flirting with the Georgia Tech job. I think that Williams isn't going to play. I think that Tulane's going to close a favorite. So I'll take the pick. Even if Williams plays, I'll take a shot on Tulane. I think that this is their year, and they're going to be up for this one. Yes, the Zach Chaikin character has been in the comments all year long handing out losers. So I would agree, Casey, to maybe we should fade this guy. He did also say Wazoo +3. I'm on the complete opposite side there. I love Fresno. Another one, Rose Bowl, Penn State. I played the over really early. I now like Penn State at anything with a plus next to it. I think that Utah losing Dalton Kincaid, their star tight end, I think that's going to be a huge issue against Penn State that has plenty of depth and has been honestly just bludgeoning teams since that Ohio State loss. Since October 22nd, they scored 30 or more against the likes of Ohio State, Minnesota. This Utah defense isn't that great, even though we rode their coattails all the way to the Pac-12 title. I think Penn State's probably going to win this game outright. I think the game goes over the total. So Penn State, I think those 3s are gone as I pull it up, but I think Penn State money line even is a good bet. 3s are kind of gone, but Penn State money line still good to me. And last one, I gave this out on BetSlip last week if you tune into that, but Duke -1.5, -2 against UCF. Absolutely. This is shaping up to be my favorite bowl bet, I think. Duke's defense is top 10 in EPA per rush allowed on the UCF side. They need to set up the run game to open up their passing game. Mikey Keene, their pocket passing quarterback, he's in the transfer portal, so he's not going to play. It's going to be a banged-up John Reese Plumlee. After that AAC championship game where they got gashed, I just don't see him getting up for this one. And on the other side, Duke, 8 wins. Mike Elko, first year head coach, ACC Coach of the Year. It's their first bowl game since 2018. I think you see Duke really up for this one. I like Duke a lot. That number's been trickling towards the Blue Devils side. They're now consensus -2 favorite. I like the Blue Devils quite a bit. I still think that they win this one outright. As I scroll through the board, I could kind of throw out some other things that stand out as we open up kind of some office hours, some other questions. Let's see if we want to flash some questions as I look through the screen. Kansas, Arkansas is another one. That total has been kind of climbing. It's at a nice round number of 69 right now. I'd still go over. I think KJ Jefferson is going to end up playing in this game. Even if he doesn't play, both teams outside the top 100 in explosive rush defense, both bottom half of the country in red zone touchdown percentage. There's going to be points all over the board here. Kansas really pumped to be in a bowl game. Arkansas, still an SEC team that could score. I think I like the over there. I think that total should start with a 7 instead of a 6. As Casey says, thoughts on the Boca Raton Bowl? He may go. Is that Liberty Toledo? As I try to pull it up really fast. Boca Raton. Yeah, Liberty Toledo. So Liberty loses coach Hugh Freeze to Auburn. Plenty of guys banged up by the end of the year. I don't really trust Jason Candle as a big favorite with Toledo. That market is currently, if I could find the screen, Toledo's around a 5-point favorite, total of 54. I'd go under, if anything, the Boca Raton Bowl. And I don't know, maybe don't go. That game may not be as exciting as people want it to be. As I saw Jerry asked about opt-outs or something or another. Any games you'd specifically wait to bet on? I think there's a few games like closer to New Year's 6 that you may want to wait on. Alabama taking on Kansas State. That number is now 3. That's expecting that Bryce Young is going to probably opt out, expecting that Will Anderson's going to opt out. All these guys on Kansas State are going to be up to play, but it's still Alabama. Their backups are still probably more talented than Kansas State. So you may want to wait on that one and come back on the Alabama side. That's just one. Ones with players that have pro prospects that are likely to go pro, I would wait on. Another one, UCLA Pitt. We saw Pitt quarterback Keaton Slovis enter the transfer portal. He's now obviously not playing. They have very, very limited experience behind him. And on the UCLA side, you have veterans that may want to go pro. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Jake Bobo, Zach Charbonnet, the Murphy twins on the defense side of the ball. They're all practicing right now, but they could quickly just get some reps in and just leave. So, UCLA went from, I believe it opened at under a field goal. It's now at 5.5, 6. I'm waiting to see where that goes. I'm kind of hoping I can maybe get in on an under bet there. So I would maybe make a list of players that you've been following this year that you think could be going pro and follow the practice reports, follow the coach quotes, and you can maybe get an edge there and, get ahead of some moves. If we want to bring up any other questions, I'm not sure if there are any other ones in the chat. As Zach said, Wazoo +3. Not really sure. I'm down to go with that one. I like Fresno a lot. I think that Fresno's going to blow them out, honestly. As I do one last scroll of the screen, what bowl team is an early read special simply based on who is going? I would have said SMU against BYU. That game has gotten all sorts of out of whack. I know we were talking about Florida, Oregon State. I like the over in that game now that the number is just so high. Don't bet Oregon. You missed the move on Anthony Richardson sitting. This was sitting in like under a touchdown. Now it's out to 10 because Richardson's sitting. I wouldn't look to bet that. I would actually go over because I think Florida still has SEC talent on the outside and can maybe, hit a few chunk plays to score. And Oregon State is going to be able to run just at will on this team. So I don't hate to look there in Oregon State. What's another one that has like opt-out potential? And I would have said Kansas State, Alabama, definitely USC, Tulane. That's kind of it, though. You're not going to learn a lot about these opt-outs until right before the game, for the most part. At this point, it's like these games start over the weekend. But yeah, thank you all for questions. Let's pull up that recap graphic one more time, and we'll wrap this show. So just go over the Bears picks again. He took Michigan -7.5 against TCU, Ohio State +6.5 against Georgia, Georgia Southern -3.5 against Buffalo, Louisiana +6.5 against Houston, Middle Tennessee State +7 against San Diego State. And then for me, I took Michigan TCU first half under 30, Georgia team total over 34.5 against Ohio State, Fresno State -3 against Washington State, Texas Tech +3.5 against Ole Miss, and then the Air Force Baylor over 49.5. There's our bets. I will have plenty of more on my bet stamp. That's at RW33. A bunch of content on my Twitter at Reed Wallach. So a bunch of stuff there. And then as for the next time this show will be live, January 4th for the national championship game, we'll have some sort of preview show there. Still ironing out some details. In the meantime, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you for getting us over 1,000 subscribers this season, but we'll have a bunch of social shorts helping you get ready for your bowl pick'em pools and all that. But until then, have a profitable bowl season, have a profitable college football playoff, and we will see you next time for the national championship.